how you can give more, how you can enrich the children's lives, not just with the knowledge that you're supposed to be giving them, but the knowledge that they deserve to have.
Mhm.
What's up, peoples? It's your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And your boy Omega.
We are back for another round of vaccines as the world starts to open up little by little and the masses are being vaccinated. We share our opinions on our experiences with being vaccinated, the concerns we have as things start to open up, and what we hope for moving forward. As every episode, we want to thank all of you for listening. We truly appreciate you listening to our hearts and minds on varied and difficult topics.
Special thank you goes out to our Patreon subscribers for their support of the show. Every little bit helps us reach our goals to invite more high-profile guests and create bonus content.
And if you want to join in our conversation outside of this cast, feel free to hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at HaveADrinkCast, and make sure to use that hashtag HADcast.
Remember, this is always a conversation. If you don't agree, you want to voice your opinions, or even suggest a topic for an episode, feel free to join our Discord as well. The link will be in the description.
And please, if you like what we're doing here, share us with your friends, your family, your neighbors, your 70 followers on Twitter. Oh wait, that's our account. Well, your referrals mean a lot to us, as that's how we gain more listeners. So,
Thank you again.
and get prepared to sit
Think.
and have a drink.
Welcome to Have a Drink Podcast. Enjoy the episode.
We said,
Peace.
What's up, peoples, and welcome back to another episode of the Have a Drink Podcast, where we invite you to sit, think, and have a drink. We're your bartenders, Mr. Z.
And I'm your boy Omega.
Hey.
Hey.
Pick
If
me
y'all
up.
couldn't see, we took a nice swig. Yeah, so what we're going to be talking about today is we're going to be kind of going back to the vaccinations and vaccine talk. After some time, we initially talked about it from, they're talking about bringing out the vaccines. Well, the vaccine is here, and some of us have gotten it already. Some of us being me, because there's only two of us. So I am fully vaccinated now, and Z is half vaxxed now. He's a half vax.
I'm used to being half.
So California's opening up. We have been in orange tier for a couple of weeks, and hopefully, if things are continuing to go how they have been, we'll be going into yellow tier rather soon. But we will also see about that because a holiday has gone by. We did have Easter recently, so therefore we will see what's going to happen. Are people going to, how do you say, get tested and show numbers, or not get tested and keep the numbers low so we can get into yellow tier? These are the things that we got to think about. And the other reason why we're bringing this up too is because the Bay Area schools are opening up again, and a lot of our districts are opening and bringing back students back onto campus. They're doing them little by little in smaller cohorts and having them in for either morning sessions or afternoon sessions, depending on what district you're with. And the district that I work for, they are doing the morning cohorts, so they're in during the morning, and then they go back on to distance learning for the afternoon. So it's kind of cool to kind of be back on campus and seeing the kids, socially distance or just being a part of the rooms, kind of getting the temperature of how the teachers are with being back on campus with students again. It's kind of different, it's kind of weird going back to something that was so normal before to now it is not, with added reserve, but it's also really nice. It feels good to come back. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. On my end, as a full vax educator, I'm going to give you another point of view of how to look at things and kind of, talk about stuff from that point of view. And then with Z, who I believe your tiny humans are still at home, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so they're still home, and he is half vaxxed. So we're just kind of having two different points of views, not necessarily opposing, but just two different views. Okay.
Actually, I was going to ask you, because I'm kind of curious, you know, because you kind of said it's a little surreal seeing, you go back to something normal after so much time of not normal. um what are your feelings like surrounding that experience, like apart from it just being weird, like do you find yourself anxious? Do you find yourself, I guess, more alert, more, on
Great
edge?
question. Me personally, especially because of what I do on the outside of the education of uh, academics, I should say, because what I do on the outside is still educational, but just outside of the academic side, is I put myself around people enough to prepare myself for school to come back. And that's the kind of thing that I want people to understand. It's like it is extremely difficult to put a kid or a person back into an old routine or something that's new to them cold turkey. You have to warm them up. And I say that because I remember coaching and I was supposed to take on a new student. This is a 3-year old who, think about this, they've never been in school. They've never really been around other people in their own recent memory because of them being so young and having been in quarantine for the last year or so. So imagine coming into a place for the first time and seeing a group of people that you have never seen before and expected to participate in an educational setting. That's pretty scary, right? It's really different. And I learned a lot from being around that little child because it was like I had to get them to warm up just to me. And I had to use different techniques to get them just to engage with me, to speak with me, even with their parent right there by their side. Because you can't even separate the parent from the child because it is too new for them. So think about that in regards to bringing kids back to school. A lot of them really want to be there, but it's also going to be it's like it's unfamiliar territories for those that are a lot younger or those that are moving from elementary to middle school. It's unfamiliar territory. And then it's with an extra alertness. Now, in regards to me personally, I was not anxious. I was not apprehensive. I was encouraged. And it's because, and I say encouraged because I have to let the kids know you are going to be okay. And I stayed strong, not just visually, but I have to stay serene within myself for the kids, for the children. And that's very important that they see confidence, they see um, reassurance. I can vocally tell them, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous, but even that will put them on edge because their parents are probably nervous, their friends are nervous, they're everything. So I just kind of have that, we're good. You're going to be just fine. We're going to be okay. We're going to respect our space. We're going to respect our cleanliness and understanding. But just understand you're okay. I'm here with you. You're here with me. And we have the same goal in mind, which is your education. And you're going to be all right.
I like that. It's interesting because especially being a parent of two tiny humans, like they right now it's really strange, especially like when everything kind of popped off. I have a burning thought that's happening that I want to jump onto in a second, but before I get there, just like speaking from my own experience, it's like, we try to keep the tiny ones home and doing the distance learning just because, that space, that environment, that classroom works a little bit differently. It's hard enough to get them to you know not be smushed up against each other sharing dirt ring pops and all that stuff. So and schools and smaller schools are usually like hives for germs and stuff and whatnot. So at the risk of sounding like an overprotective parent, like I just I don't see how you can do that while also giving them the chance to socialize with kids. And that's just because, a lot of the way things are right now is just all experimental. It's all over the place depending on which district you're in, you know.
Yeah.
And so like it's just kind of hard to figure out on all ends. So we figure, especially with how the year has gone, um we've definitely wanted to keep some sort of consistency, because we saw what it was like when the pandemic kicked in, and they were like halfway through their school year and it just stopped, and then like there was nothing for a stretch of time, and then there was stuff, and then you had to do stuff, and then there was summer, break, and then
Right.
you jump right back into this way of learning now. And so like they didn't get to finish out a year of, like, they did half of it in person, and then boom, half is like sporadic, all over the place, doesn't have any sort of guidance, consistency, etc. Like essentially for the beginning of the pandemic, um I was the teacher for both of them, and they're in two
Mhm.
different grades. And so I had to adjust, pages and learning and classes and courses and things, just to give them a variety of education. Um, and so, with that being the new norm, as we switched to more, and like the teachers had, Zoom classes and what have you, we got to see, this pattern building for them, the way they learned. They were starting to learn, obviously still needed assistance, here and there, clarification, because it's kind of hard having a bunch of tiny humans on a Zoom call, and then you ask one question, or you're asking a question but you say stay on mute and nobody stays on mute. and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is
it,
very difficult.
and it's overloading for some children, and so you got to also be in there. So it's just kind of like giving them a consistency, especially through the end of the year, as things started doing this hard shift again
Mhm.
halfway through. I'm like, wait, why can't we just finish it out like this and then start your new way of like routine and prepping and what have you? But the burning thing that I wanted to address was, if I could create reality in the world the way I would like it, this is what I would say we should have been focusing on in during the pandemic, especially when it came to school. The emotional well-being of children. We talked about, we like, as a society, had all talked about, oh, the kids need their social interaction. Yes, that's true, but that's not the going to be the way that works right now. We have to figure out creative new ways to do so. The next thing would have been, the academics. Their grades are gonna fall, and they need to make sure they're up on their classes and their courses, when in actuality what we should have been focusing on was like their emotional well-being, the understanding that they're going to have some trauma, they're going to have some things they're going to need to work through. They're going through a pandemic just like we are, as adults. So while I've seen a lot of different, throughout the pandemic, I saw a lot of different responses to trauma, and the way it happened in people's homes, and the way it happened to people's, relationships, and their work, choices. And it just, we we drive home, they need to learn this, that, and a third. But when actuality, what the pandemic essentially did was kind of like put everything on its head. It's like everybody needs to understand, you need some emotional intelligence. You need to take care of your emotional well-being, your emotional health, your mental health. We talk about it on this show. Like, we I mean, even though you might not see it all the time, we do check-ins with each other. We try to see how we're doing. We talk about what's going on in our lives. We try to focus on that. Like, and not choosing that is going to be problematic for the future of the current generation, because we've seen so many different responses, some good responses on like how Gen Z, they're coming with, all these new skills and a refocusing of purpose and life and understanding. But we have smaller children, you know, that are missing out on that social interaction. They're missing out on the what are those social cues and norms, and learning how to interact with the world in a way that is genuine, but without the need for violence. You learn all of that by, like, you're learning consequences, you're learning responsibilities, you're learning all these things, because not just from teachers and parents, you learn it from your peers. You learn what to do, what not to do, what stupid choices to make, what not stupid choices to make. So understanding that that's going to be the necessary education that these children need, like jumping back into school, regular school, like, I think it's going to be traumatic for some. Yes, it's going to be like we get to go back to normal. We get to go back to this life, but the residual effect of that we have yet to see, because we haven't fully gone there yet. We haven't seen all of it play out. We see some. I mean, my nephew goes back to school. He's doing in person, I think, a little bit in person, a little bit online, the hybrid, you know? And like, he's like, I'm glad to be back around people, but at the same time, it's a little nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I definitely could see that. Only reason why I won't go as far as saying coming back is going to be traumatic in a sense is because it's nothing new. The first day of school is nothing new. And I say that because think about it. When you took your tiny humans to their first day of school, who was traumatized more? Was it the kids or was it you? Right? It's
I mean, I was good for the most part. I mean, because I was good.
but you know what I mean though. Like
No,
most of
I
the time
know.
it's mostly the parents, right?
Right, right.
And where we are pushing our reserve, our feelings, our concerns on the kids, and that's what the kids are taking. The kids are not worried so much, it's the parents that are overly worried, and they're the ones that are putting the fear within the children. So like first day of school should be about, hey, we're gonna meet friends, we're gonna do this. Well, how do you prepare your child for, let's say, transitional kindergarten, or for kindergarten if they don't go through TK? How do you prepare your kids for that? You don't just keep them at home for the first 3 4 years of their life and never socialize them, and then all of a sudden go, all right, go to school. All right, bye, I'll see you at 2, or I'll see you at 12. You can't do that. That's the trauma. That's the traumatic experience. But the way you get them to used to that is you socialize them outside of school. You get them into an educational setting, or you sit them down for longer periods of time and you talk to them, you teach them, you work with them. You have them practice sitting on the floor at the house, or let's say you go with a group of friends and they have their play dates, right? Or you guys do something together where it's led by you or an adult or something, and they just work on listening. They do arts and crafts together. You build those things. That's how you get them ready for school. So when they go to school, it's like the same thing they've been doing. It's nothing brand new. So, and that's the approach that I'm taking with bringing them back to school, is reassuring them this is just like what we did before. The rules have not changed. Maybe the scenery has changed. Maybe you're not able to just roll over and have your laptop on your bed and you're in class, but that is still the same. And like that's something I've been talking to my nieces and nephews about. I'm in my family is talking to them about keeping that routine going at home, keeping the routine of you still got to wake up in the morning. You still got to shower, brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, and then go to school. Well, what do you mean go to school? I'm just going to sit at the. No, 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 no. Yes, we may not leave the house, but this is still routine. So when they do say school's back in, we have to go to school, you're not re-teaching them. You're not starting from scratch again. You have that already. So with the kids coming back in small cohorts is reacclimating them to being in those settings. And the way that I can explain how the classroom is set up, and I thought was really interesting, it's different but interesting, because I did a walkthrough in one of the teachers' classrooms, you know, and I just wanted to see what is your classroom like now that we're coming back. And the best way I can explain it is a parking lot with a parking attendant. So you have your spaces. Each space is directly for that one, right? So now it's like if I have valet parking, they're not necessarily they could space every or put everybody directly next to each other and you sit there, right? Or if I'm at a sporting event and I got a nice car, there's a bunch of nice cars. How much space do you want to put between you and the next car? Because you don't trust those other people, those other cars, the way they drive, the way they park. You're going to space them out. So that's essentially what we did with the kids is that they spaced them out like they're luxury vehicles. You know, you have one kid here, they have their desk, they have their plastic that surrounds the desk, like in a sense like a cubicle, but it's clear plastic just to keep them protected. And then you have your space for the next desk. Then you have your space for the next desk, so on and so forth. And there's only what 6 kids in class. Mind you, we would put 30 kids in a classroom. Now you have 6, maybe 8, definitely no more than 10. But I'm almost 100% positive none of the classes have 10 kids. So think about all the space that they now have. And then you have, and I say the parking attendant, right? Which is your teacher. Your teacher has their island or their space, right? They have 2 laptops, one to teach, one to still run their distance learning cohorts. So those that are at home, their desk is surrounded by plastics. They have their projector, but it's a digital projector. So the kids that are in the room are still online, but in the room. Now, you see the face you made? You're like, well, what's the point of them going back to school? To get them back on the routine again. So you're not doing an extreme change. The most extreme change is the scenery change. So they're still online digitally. So they're still seeing their teacher. They're still submitting their work digitally. They're still being able to do that, but now they're in the room. So they're like, okay, so this is what it's like. So they're inching things back. It's weird to me, yes, but it makes sense because when I walked through the room, I was like, okay, I get it. Because you can't just go, okay, close the laptop, now you're in the room. Now you have to learn how to look at a board and look down at paper. It's not the same. You know, if you have a question, you can ask the question still. It's still quiet, and then you can still run the class and be in class, but it's just you are now physically back. And then we're just going to inch them in that way. So it makes a little bit more sense.
But doesn't it show the I mean, we talk about it all the time in all, not just you and I, but like other outlets, other things. They talk about it all the time of the outdated structure of education. I mean, I could see the benefit of having a smaller class size, which I could see, that's gives children more of an opportunity to get a bit more focused attention. But like at the same time, you're putting them back into that factory setting. Like I get where where we're trying to acclimate them back into school and whatnot, but like my concern before is, we're gonna go back to focusing on the wrong things.
I'm very glad you said that. Very glad you said that. I agree, but I also have another way I'm looking at it too. What this did is it forced everybody to update their system. Remember how we all used to complain about only the rich or the more affluent communities had iPads for their kids or tablets for their kids, or and then they're the only ones that gave their kids laptops to study and work from. That's no more. That has made the school systems update themselves to provide technology for these children, right? So that's number one. So, granted, yes, maybe the physical is back to the factory settings, but the software is updated.
but it's also the information that is part of the update. That's got to be a part of it, because we're going back. I get it.
I get you.
Omega's gym class, PE class, is not necessarily like a normal PE class, so we can't base it off of that. Because like you will focus on the things, because I mean we have these conversations not just together, but with other people all the time, on like how you can give more, how you can enrich the children's lives, not just with the knowledge that you're supposed to be giving them, but the knowledge that they deserve to have.
Hmm. I like that.
you know so I mean, so like the other classes, some teachers who just go based off of, you need to know this knowledge and that's it. But like, you have the math, you have, and like, and I'm not saying that's all teachers. you know like I know quite a few teachers, and they're amazing people, and they are they are part of, that higher consciousness, community. They look at their teaching not only as an opportunity to just, give them that knowledge, but like give them something more, treat them like people, enrich their lives with understanding consent, understanding how, like, sex education in a more updated way, all these things.
Yeah. So now you're talking about content.
Right.
So the content is changing. Now think about this. And I want to challenge you on this too. What was your thoughts on the way that the content was updated in regards to math? So Common Core, the math, and I'm saying specifically math because that's the part that most people have been vocal about. What was your thoughts on it?
The Common Core, I don't understand what it is, and it's been explained to me multiple times. I have no idea what the Common Core is, because I assume that's what we said before, when I was like, my niece started learning all the high school algebra and math that I was learning, but she was 6 years younger than me,
Hmm.
you know?
Or when I say like Common Core, it's like it's a new. In a sense, people are saying like the new math, right? Or it's a new way of teaching. Your counting or grouping or problem solving, stuff like that. So it's not about the way we were brought up with teaching and learning math was 2 plus 2 equals 4, right?
Mhm.
Or 5 plus 5 is 10. So now in Common Core, they're not only talking about 5 plus 5 equals 10, they're focused on how did you get to the 10? Did you do doubles? So did you do 5 and 5? Or did you do 6 and 4? Did you go
Oh,
10 minus, did you go 5, and then did you add ones, did you go by twos, did you go by fours, did you go by, so they're giving them different strategies on how to get to 10
yeah.
or stuff like that. And it's
Okay.
like whether it's right or wrong, it's about the journey, not the destination. Whereas everybody is always about the destination. 2 plus 2 is 4, that's it. Don't teach me any other way to go come about it. If 5 plus 5 is 10, that's it. Don't tell me about I have to go from 20 and take away fives to get to that, or 20 and start, different ways, different strategies. I don't want to do that. How am I supposed to teach my kids this? So, and I'm saying that because that was just their way of introducing new content,
Right.
and people fought it tooth and nail. Not only parents, but teachers, because they had to learn something new and teach something they've been teaching a new way.
It's
So
interesting.
there's so much fighting going on.
That's interesting.
So think about that. So now, and I say that now, think about if we were to start teaching history differently, English differently, how much fighting there would be. And all we did was talk about the most simplest basic thing to think of a new way, which is math. You
Man, I
know,
feel like a dude sitting on the outside of a movie, just watching the shit happen and being like, "Don't go in there." Are you going in there? Of course you're gonna go in there, or else there will be no movie.
yeah,
Of like,
exactly.
don't fight change. It's a necessary part of life, and understand that it's going to be uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
it's necessary.
Right. Right. And a lot of and think about this. When was the last time a lot of these adults have been in school? So you are basing what your children are learning off of what you learned 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. So much stuff has changed since then. And the same thing rolls back into the thought process of the vaccine. You're basing your information off of things that we're informed about from 50, 100 years ago. And like I was just explaining last night to my cousin, he was like, he has his reserves. I'm like, I totally respect it, you know. And we got such a deep bond and love. Like we can have this conversation freely. And he's like, you know, like why do I need to get the vaccine if everybody else around me is already vaccinated? I said because people with the vaccine can still get it, just like you can get it. And he's like, okay, so what's the point of the vaccine? I said, well, what's the point? It's just like the flu. Everybody compares it to the flu. It's like, well, you get the flu vaccine from last year's strain to build up your immunity to hopefully help give you more of a fighting chance to fight the next strain. And it's like, so we're just always, because of the way we are, we're always playing catch up. Eventually, one day we'll get to prevention. So I was like, so by you get, I got the vaccine. I am, don't forget, I am a black cisgender male who was worried about what is the effects of me, what is going to happen to me. Well, what did I do? I got the vaccine. Why did I get the vaccine? They're like, well, man, you crazy. You just, no, 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 no. I got the vaccine not for me. I got the vaccine for we. I got the vaccine for the kids because I'm thinking about what would happen to me in my heart and mind if I decided to not get the vaccine and it was me who gave it to a child. It was me who gave it to another person. That's where it is. Granted, yes, I did just say I could still get it. Yes, I could. But at least I did what I could on my end to try to lessen that or try my own preventative measures for me to protect the we. So in that regards, when we're bringing the children back in small cohorts, I know that I can stand tall by these kids and be like, hey, we are all on the same page. I'm doing my part to help the community, to help you. Let's learn. Because at least they can look at me and say, my teacher is protecting me. My teacher has the best interest for me to do better.
I like that. I was thinking because you know what you said earlier. Thank you for explaining Common Core. So now that I know that, I think that way. The way they teach Common Core, all of that, already think that way. How can I get there? How many things? Like, what is all this? All that. And so, like, it teaching that to the tiny humans, because I've also experienced it while teaching them the math, because I had to do that for a little bit for them. It wasn't a problem. It's getting them to understand. I'm like, doesn't matter if you have you know 6 over here and 4 over here, or 5 over here, or 5 over here, or 2 over here and 8 over here. you know it's still going to be 10, no matter how I separate my fingers. If I keep some over here and I'm like, okay, now count how many.
Yeah,
It's both of these hands equal 10.
right.
Unless you don't have a digital
I
mouse.
understand.
Right. But like that idea of critical thinking and applying it to the vaccine as well.
You said critical thinking. That means we are encouraging the kids to do what?
Have critical
Critically
thinking.
think
Yeah,
and
have critical thinking.
explain how you got there.
Right. The that though was implemented before, like, obviously that was before the pandemic and everything had happened. And changing that, and like also change, getting people on the side of like, hey, the vaccine, like, you got to do it for herd immunity, for the we, not just the me. But it's like, I get the introducing it slowly, but I think it also has to go back to the people themselves, as kind of like teaching people that change is okay, and
Change is
how to
good.
manage that feeling, how to manage change, how to
Right.
manage the new experience that's going to happen. I said it. I said this the other day talking to someone. I said, like in order for there to be this new level of evolution for stuff, in order for there to be, this new structure of education, the new everything, there's going to you're going to have to introduce some chaos.
Hmm.
And what chaos does is, if you think about it in the way of like a field, it loosens the soil. It loosens all of that impacted soil that's had been impacted from the years of like it raining on it, and then people walking or driving or just being there, like just years of that same experience. But what you do in order to be able to grow or start this new process of life or what have you, you have to break up the soil. You have to tend to the soil, then you plant the seed, and then it will grow. But like, understanding that process is critical to change.
Right.
In like, obviously you're going to go through stuff, you're going to feel things, but if we focused on how we manage it, we can, like, if we're going in a cycle, you don't want to just sit in the same little circle. I want to
Hmm.
jump in another circle, and then another one, and just go to another one, and so it's just loops instead of me being stagnant in one little spot. Turn it and go around the
Correct.
spiral,
Correct.
go through these loops of like, I'm feeling this way, but it's okay because I understand it's necessary for change. Like, not I fear this, therefore I will hold on to this fear and never think of it in a different way. you
Correct.
know I mean, I said before this, like, I we've had an episode before talking about vaccines, the history of it, not super extensive, but we got into a bit of it and kind of understanding the flow of it and understanding that the timeline is sped up considerably because we're in a pandemic in the future,
Hmm.
from when that study was done. Even with all of that knowledge, understanding how it works, understanding the necessary process of herd immunity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I'm still a person of color, you know, who has a healthy level of paranoia to the government.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
mm, it hasn't always been pretty in the past, like between my name, my color, and whatever style choices I make to myself, or sexual orientation. you know they're not so happy about any of that.
Yeah.
So I've not had a good experience with them. So I have that within me, but the decision to go forward and get vaccinated anyway, I do want to go back to I don't want to go back to my old life, but I want to go back out into the world and experience it. Like, I want
Mhm.
to be able to gather with people who have been vaccinated, not like basically you. I want to hang out with you. Like, I want us to do our year anniversary for the show, plug, uh you know coming up in May. We want to do an in-person episode where you all get to hear our dynamic live, essentially, like what it's like between us, without a computer, or a little black bar separating us. you know so having that, and then understanding that, like, the people in my life that I know that are immunocompromised, I don't want to go around them if they haven't been vaccinated. Like, but like, if they have, like, I still want to be able to be protected, in case somebody I know has it
Right.
and they're vaccinated, and I go around them and they're like, oh yeah, I have it, but it was fine, my immune system took care of it. I'm like, I haven't been vaccinated yet,
Hmm.
and I'm about to get it. Like, huh? And that feeling is more terrifying to me than, the fear of what could possibly conspiracy theory happen. You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
there's a grain of truth in there somewhere, but also the logic part of my brain runs on high. It's like rational mind. Rationally though,
Right.
they
Right.
they won't. like this is a good thing for us.
Right. And I mean, I'm just going to be real about it too. It's like I can say somebody very near and dear to my heart has coronavirus and they are suffering. It is one thing to see it from afar. It's another thing to have it be somebody close to you. And to see them suffering and you cannot do anything but talk to them. And even then you're concerned. Like you almost don't even want to talk to them because they can barely breathe and they're struggling. They are taking short breaths. They are physically struggling to breathe and live. It is very, very scary. So I'm not trying to push this to push people to get vaccinated. I'm saying this just to be a source of reality. Like, you could choose to believe or not believe. That's completely on you. I can't tell you how to feel and or think, but I will say there is nothing more disheartening than watching somebody you love and care about suffer and you can't do anything. You know, um, and I'm also saying that because it's like, now imagine that being a student or somebody you know or somebody very close to you, and to find out that you were the reason they are going through that. You could have helped to prevent it, or you could have been a part of them not catching it, but because you chose the decisions you chose, force that upon them. And I'm not saying that to scare people, to anger people. I'm just saying like these are the things that we have to think about as as adults, as parents, as educators, as community leaders, just as people in the community in general. You have to think about things in this way. And yes, again, I am not going to play it off. I'm going to say it again. I am aware that even as a vaccinated person, I could catch it, I could have it, or I could pass it. But you know what? At least I'm doing the best that I can to try to prevent that from happening to the best of my ability. And to tie it back into the school is looking at those little faces and knowing that I'm doing my part to be the change that they need to see. Not just wish to see, but need to see is important. You know, um, doing the small cohorts on campus and reassuring the students online they're doing good. They're okay. Or having the kids coming online because my PE class is after lunch. So the kids, there are no kids on campus unless they're in after school care. There are no kids on campus and they go home and they do my PE class. You know, so they're not even on campus with me. Only the middle school kids are. And there's only, in this very select few, we only rolled in the sixth graders. And there's only a very few of them, you know. So it's like we have to make accommodations but show reassurance that we are going to get through this together. We all do our part, you know. um, I will say, like, my concern with sixth grade kids is they are very immature, as expected, and they're overly excited to be back. Some of them want to be cool. You have the kids that want to be cool, you have the kids that still want to be kids. You have those that will listen, you have those that don't. So my biggest concern was the youngest kids not being able to respect space and boundaries and having to pick their nose, fingers in their mouth, rub their eyes, everything. And then the middle school kids of, I'm trying to be cool, I don't want to listen to you, I can be free and not have my parents around. And those were the issues that the reserves that I had. But to see some of these kids really matured out and they were good, I was like, cool. Now I did see a pair of boys, middle school, make contact with each other, not respect space because they're middle school kids. They're going to. I don't know the relationship. They very well could be best friends and have played with each other over the last few months, and that's why they felt okay to be that close. But I looked at the two from the other six, and I was like, that pair out of the six showed me a lot. Because all the other kids were kind of looking at him like, what are you guys doing? Like, you guys know better. And I was like, that was the growth. That's the household. That's the understanding. That's the training and preparation for the kids to go back. So there's the those that were properly trained versus those that weren't. And that's the concern that we all have. But again, like I said, did you prepare them to go through this?
But that should have been what we were focusing on rather than focusing on the necessary whatever learned your one, twos, and threes and fours. Yes, do that. But focus on this. This is
Yeah,
going to be most important right now for you, you know, and it'll
right,
be
right.
you'll live a healthier life. But yeah.
I
Uh
will I will say this though too, to go back to the focusing on the one, two, threes, and fours, is the educational part has suffered tremendously. And I'll say that because this goes back to, and I'm saying this with confidence. And if you want to at me on this, talk to me. I don't care. Everybody wants to blame the teachers, saying it's their fault their kids are falling behind. When in reality, it is you're not doing your job at home, helping that child because you don't know your child well enough to learn their learning style to help them learn and grasp the information.
seriously.
And I'm not saying that as an educator to point
You can at
fingers.
me.
I'm saying that because I have to learn different ways of how to teach children. If I can do 30 different ways in one classroom, not 30 different ways, but let's say two different ways, three different ways in one session, you're telling me you can't do one in your house. And
Right?
I get it. You're working. Yes, you are right. And you're tired. Yes, you are right. There is a lot going on. Yes, you are right. I am not taking anything away from you as a parent, as a person. I'm not taking that away from you because I get it. I understand it. Granted, yes, I will sit here and say my child is grown and on her own now, but I still help others with their kids. And they ask me all the time, well, what do you think I should do? Well, how about try this, that, and the other? Why? Because they know that I'm going to take the time to learn their child. But why don't you take that time to learn your child and learn how to help them? That is the most important thing.
I will back you up on that as a parent. I will double down on that one because 100%, because I see it all the time. Obviously, you might not have time, but like, do you not know your child? Is that what you're telling me? Is you don't know, you don't actually know your child? Why do I know your child more than you, better than you do? It's talking like as a teacher. I'm not a
Mhm.
teacher though, you know, like that shouldn't have to be the thought that crosses their mind, you know, because having just two children who have two vastly different learning styles, just doing that myself for a while and then like seeing other parents be able to do it in the house, like yeah, able to it's possible. You just got to learn it, you just got to pay attention, you just got to pay attention. And in
No, no,
yeah,
continue, continue.
no, I know what I'm saying. And then like that's I mean, that's I'm right there. I back that 100% of like it's not on the teachers to make sure that your kids are doing their work. It's on the parents to understand how to help them to already like I mean, if you don't
Support.
already know, you're right, support them. If you don't already know, that's not like vilifying you for that. But
It's
like
encouragement to learn.
it's encouragement to learn, but it's also like ask yourself, do you actually know your child? Like
Hmm.
it's not trying to reprimand. Like I know you're probably feeling feelings right now, but like it's also to say like maybe it's time to actually like check in and be like, hey, are they a hands-on kind of learner? Are they, are they a visual learner? Are they, an auditory learner? Just like what is their learning style? Is
Right.
it a blend of some? Do they learn better with there's music? Does it need to be, get your body moving and like I try to teach you through movement? Like what is their style? Because if the world what we saw in the beginning, if everything shut down, teachers were MIA, all of that, you wouldn't and TVs shut down, all you had was the internet, but you couldn't stream anything other than education. How would you teach your kids?
Right.
Like, would you just sit there and yell at them because that was the way you were taught? Like,
Right.
no.
I hope
You
not.
try. I hope not. Like, you try not to. Like, but
But
like, yeah.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I do want to say this part. Let's start even easier. Where is your child studying and learning? Did you create a learning conducive environment for them? And I say that because I have paid attention to how some of the students are learning, the spaces that they're learning in. And I even looked at my niece's learning space, right? So, one thing is for sure, during this time, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they needed us to watch the kids for a little bit. As you see, if you don't know, I have a workstation for the podcast, but I also create a workstation for me to teach my class. First thing I did was they were like ready to set up the kids on the kitchen table in the living room. And I was like, no. I said, no, she's gonna go in my office and have her space. I set up my table. I made sure she had internet connection. She had a space for her writing utensils, everything, and I gave her a space so she can learn freely. I was like, "Do you want to wear your headphones, or do you not want to wear your headphones? If you don't want to wear your headphones, it's all good. We'll turn up the volume. The door will be closed. If you need to take your break, or if they say you're on a break time, let me know. We'll have a timer for you. Come out." And break. Get out of the room, get away from the computer, and take your 15-minute or your 30-minute lunch break, whatever, but you have to create a workspace. If you need a workspace for you to do your job, what makes your child any different? They should not be studying or learning on their bed. That is not okay. And I say that because, well, shoot, what do I do? If I put my laptop on the bed and I'm sitting there trying to teach your child, how would you look at me? Like you're not taking your job seriously. You're not doing. Why is it okay for your child to do that? Well, it's not. Well, you can't tell me. No, it's not this. It's the same thing. If you have higher standards for me, why don't you have that for your child? And I'm saying that because I'm not mentioning any names of schools or people, but I'm going to say this. There are schools out there with a bunch of ineligible athletes. Your child, your athlete has to have a at least a 2.5 to play, to be considered eligible, like a 2.3. They don't have that. And this school year is almost up. And you can't sit there and tell me, well, I shouldn't have to monitor them all the time. You are right, but that's because they don't take it seriously. But you want their kid, you want your student, your athlete to be great and be able to get to this college, do this or play this ball. They want to play in the NBA, but they can't do their own job of studying or being in class doing that. It's like now imagine if they did get drafted or not drafted, but they got to play D1 ball. Do you know how much harder it is to be disciplined, to go through all of your practices, to play your games, to do your meets, do all that? And then on top of that, have to go to your classes and not be at home? That is so hard. Teach them now. Prepare them for later by teaching them now. Now, they also say, well, I don't want my kid in front of the computer all day. We don't want to be in front of the computer all day. 6 hours is a lot. 8 hours is a lot. I understand. I agree. Teach them how to do it in parts. They get breaks. You teach them time management. If they need to stand up and take breaks, learn how to communicate that. Or put them in an environment where they can move around but still listen and pay attention. I'm a mover. You guys can't see it, but I have to move my legs like crazy all the time. My feet is moving, my arms is moving. I'm moving all the time. I'm fidgeting with stuff. Not because I have ADHD, but just I'm a mover. So if I'm in a classroom doing something, I need to be actively doing something. If I'm studying, I'm gonna tell you right now, when I'm studying, I'm listening to lo-fi hip hop, lo-fi music in the background while I'm studying. Why? Because it helps me get into my mood. If that's how I study, why not have that? So your child can listen to music and do that at the same time. If they need a mental break, tell them, take them outside, go move, go do something. But set them up for success by creating a workspace for them and implementing different things for them. Also, if you have younger kids or older kids, you need to know their schedule, just like they need to know their schedule. What you guys don't see is to my left, I have my classroom schedule: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I know what teacher, what class, what time. Why don't you have something visual, tangible, physical on their desk? So if something is to happen digitally, they know what time and where. We all have cell phones. We all have that. We all have Google Calendar, stuff like that. Why not set up a calendar that lets them know, hey, it's Monday, 12:30 is PE. It will automatically chime in on their computer or on their calendar or on their phone or on your tablet or whatever. This is called setting them up for success. Why do you only do this for you, but you don't think about your kids in that way? Because when they come to school, we have their calendar. If it's elementary, a lot of times they write on the board 8:10 to 9 o'clock reading, 9 o'clock to 9:45 math, 9:45 to 10 recess, 10:05 to 10:40 writing workshop. We detail everything so they know ahead of time. So then when they look, what are we also teaching them? How to tell time. We're teaching them how to pay attention to a schedule. We're teaching them about management of what we're going to do, how much time you have to get X, Y, and Z done for those that are on the spectrum or whatever. And if they are super high if they're high functioning, they can they can handle that. But maybe they may be high functioning, but they're highly attached to time. So we give them we either cover the timer or we let them know you have 10 minutes, and there's a timer down there on their desk to let them know in 10 minutes. So this I need this amount done in these next 10 minutes. And then after that, we'll give you a break. You have to know how to work with your students. And mind you, I just told you how we have our gen ed kids. I just told you how we can work with a high functioning kid. And I'm also going to tell you those kids that need a lot more attention. What are we going to do? We're going to chunk it. We're going to give you little chunks to work on. If you're going to struggle with writing 3 sentences and a lot of time because you're easily distracted, well, how about this? I help you with this little bit, and then you do this little bit here. You just have to know how to work with different kids. And they're going to be like, well, you went to school for this. Actually, I learned this from being in the field, being in the room. I learned this before I went to college. You can do this too. I use these same strategies with my kids, with my kid, with my nieces and nephews and my students.
May I address the elephant in the room?
A's lost, I know. Just kidding. Just kidding. What's
Sadness.
the question?
Um, do you think it's too soon?
Uh,
Considering to get kids ready to go back into school, because that is the concern. Considering that the pandemic isn't over. Just because we get our vaccines doesn't mean the pandemic is over. Let's kind of like address that. You know,
okay.
the it's going to go for at least another 3, maybe 4 years, because what we're going to have to pay attention for is long-term side effects of getting COVID, long-term side effects of getting the
Vaccine.
vaccines, the prepare the protection or preparedness of our communities towards another major outbreak and shutdown, because within the next few years that is a higher on the probability scale than normal, considering that the timeline for it was around 2020, and now we have to go through that little bit of time where it's either we're going to get it, like I said when we were talking about the vaccines last time, like, even though people all got vaccinated on that date, they had to roll it back because it wasn't effective, or wasn't effective enough, and they needed to come back with something else to address it, you know
Um,
so.
okay. So to go to the elephant, is it too soon? I say no. And the reason I say no is because we will always say, "I need more time." If it's offered, we will always go for "I need" or "I want more time." Right now, in respect to that too, I'm gonna say because some people are like, "Well, why are you gonna start them in end of March, early April? They're out of school by May, June." It's a controlled test. This is what I deduce. This is me. This is not my school or what I've heard. This is what I deduce. It's a small test to see what next school year will and could be like when we start. Because why would we start in August trying to do this rollout when we can do it for a month, 2 months, and see how does this work over the summer? Regroup, figure out what worked, what didn't, how we should pivot, how we can improve. So when the school year starts again, and we get back to how we want things or how we would like things, we will be able to go that route. Also, with it being the end of summer, beginning of fall, we are trying to go away. We're trying to start not during a sick season, if that makes sense. Because let's say if we have to push back, if we can't really start in fall and we start in the winter, well, again, what was our biggest worry? Cold season, flu season, right? So it's like, why would we try to push kids to come back when they may be getting colds and flus at this time? So we catch them around, which is weird, allergy season. So at least we know they're sneezing because of allergies. They can take allergy medicine. They can get that taken care of. We can do that then, if that makes sense. Speaking of, I didn't take my allergy medicine, and I need to. Um, but that's just my own personal 2 cents. In this is not the views or this is not the views of my job or whether they think about things or how they feel. This is just me personally. I feel it's good we start now. And mind you, we're in California. We're late to the game in bringing this back because why? Many states across the country have already reintroduced kids back to school. They have already opened schools back up. And in some states, they are fully opened. So it's like we have been sitting in the background, like paying attention, seeing how this works, if this works, what doesn't work, what has worked. And we're doing our own rollout. So I feel like we're doing pretty well with it so far. I mean, we give students all the necessary tools to be successful in school to the best of their ability. And we also have plans in place for how they come on campus, how they move on campus, and how they exit campus. So there's so many different things that are in place. And we have X amount of bathrooms in various areas. People are allowed to go to this bathroom, but not this bathroom. They can use this. They can do. There's so many things that are in place. We need to see it roll out now.
Okay. Uh, I guess then my next question then becomes, what if, I mean, with like, the variants that exist that are within our country, the two, that we know about, what is it worth the exposure of our kids to that? Because now people are starting to get this idea of normalcy coming back, and when that's not the case, like you just said at the top of this, is like, we just had Easter, so we're gonna see what comes of that, because people had gatherings, people had all sorts of things, so we're gonna see how that works out. But like, what if, like, how does that translate if our children then become exposed, and then the children become the ones that get hit the hardest, because they're sharing this community of stuff, because not all kids are going to listen. You said it
Mhm.
before, like, it's part of the community at home. Sometimes you get to see how much, I guess I'll put it this way, how much the parents need to work through some of the life that they've gone through, and kind of do a little readjusting, so that they don't impart that on their kids in similar ways.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the kids are already exposed.
what do you mean?
They go outside. They go to the store. They do certain things with their parents. You know what I
Some
mean?
kids do.
Some kids do, and then you also have the parents that leave anyways. They have to go to the store. They have to do that. So they're
Right,
already
right,
coming
right, right,
back
right.
with it. So the kids are already exposed. And the crazy thing too is this: think about this. Kids stay sick in the beginning of school, regardless of who and or where they are. So kindergarten, first grade, second grade, first couple of years of school, kids are always sick. Why? Because they are surrounded by each other. They're getting used to each other. They do that a lot, regardless of. And that's why, like me as an educator, me and us as educators, we don't get as sick as often because we are surrounded by that so much. So our immune system has actually developed a lot more because of us being in that consistency, being around it a lot. So essentially, and I'm not saying as far as coronavirus itself, but I'm saying when we're exposed, getting them around each other more again, they're going to start building that immunal strength. And now, if we tack on the vaccine, that's just going to help, I feel. Now, granted, on the flip side, they're not giving it to kids. They're not giving it to anybody under the age of 16 right now. Yes. But notice, we weren't getting it either. It was the eldest, and then they're rolling it down. So it's that
Right.
trickle down effect. We are going to get there eventually, but we are
Right.
not going to start the opposite way and work our way up. So eventually, this may be a thing where just like tuberculosis, just like the flu, just like all the other things, in order to go to school, you're going to need to get your vaccine. That's more than likely what's probably going to happen within the next year or so. So that's going to
Right.
be the change. Now, we can't wait until then because we are not, it doesn't make sense to wait that long. I personally feel it doesn't,
Right.
I don't feel like it's not going to help our community. It's only going to hurt our community even more if we keep trying to prolong and push and wait and wait and wait and live in not so much caution anymore, but almost fear.
Mm.
You know, caution I get, fear I refuse. I cannot live in fear, and I don't wish anybody else to live in fear. Live with be cautious, be understanding, be
Be educated.
aware, be educated, be aware, but don't be afraid.
Right.
Because again, if I keep talking about you're getting sick, we're gonna get sick, you're gonna get sick if you do this, you're gonna do this. Mentally first, you are going to get sick. You are going to be so worried. You are going to make yourself sick. And I don't want that.
What about to the argument of, because this, like you mentioned it too lightly about, like, this is also COVID. We talk about its relation to the flu as far as the necessary requirements for getting vaccinated every
Mhm.
year, you know. But like the effects aren't the same.
Not
What
no way.
happens, what happens inside of you is
Way different.
vastly different, and you know a lot of the arguments that people had were, it only affects the elderly. That's why it doesn't. It affects anybody. It doesn't. They're like, viruses don't discriminate. Sometimes some people, because of their life habits or maybe a shitty roll of the genetic dice,
Mhm.
some people have a lower immune system, or some people have, different things going on with them, health wise, that it finds and amplifies and uses, and it does other things in other parts of the body. So like, it doesn't discriminate. It might
Correct.
like some things more, like some particular genetic structures more, but
Correct.
it doesn't discriminate. So the idea that we're willing to put our kids into that environment, because you said it, they're not vaccinated.
Mhm.
Kids younger people under 16 are not getting vaccinated yet, because they haven't done any trials, as far as I know, of things, or at least got results that were good. um you know Again, as far as I know,
Mhm.
this is personal knowledge. And so the idea that, okay, now that we're all vaccinated as adults and everything, kids, it's fine to go back to school and go be a part of your life and your world that you want to be a part of. you know go into the environment that was dangerous at the beginning, that caused everything to stop. So I mean, again, you saying that you're not going to live in fear, and you want to be cautious, you want to be educated, you want to be prepared, but also understanding the like I feel to add to that, to understand the realms of possibilities, because people can guess all sorts of things are going to happen, but you understand the worst case scenario, prepare for it, and plan for better. I see the, rolling it out of like trying to plan for the better of like their education and getting them used to it, but like if they're the last ones to get it, they should be the last ones to have to be put back into that space, you know. And that's, those are that's like my own personal thoughts and feelings. I don't represent anybody but myself, so.
No, I understand, and you're not wrong. You're not wrong, and that is a very shared thought process, and I feel for that thought process. Now, what I will say is a lot of the kids don't really get affected by it
Sesame
that
Street
we
told me
know of.
otherwise.
No. That I'm saying that we know of, like it's not as prevalent from what because we've protected them as much as we have.
Right.
I'm not saying that they don't get it. I'm not saying that they
Right.
haven't gotten it. I'm not saying that they can't get it. I'm just saying because we as adults, as parents, have protected them as much as we have pretty much helped them to the point to where we have prevented them from contracting it.
Right.
So they are almost the safer ones to start to bring back.
But
If you
aren't
want,
that
I'm just giving that an opposite way of looking at it. We
of
have the
course.
ones that have been vaccinated that are perceived to be okay. Then we also have those that have not been exposed to it and they stay away from it, and we protect them. We've cleaned them. We've taught them. We've done everything we can. So there's just two different ways of looking at it, but there is no real answer that we can come up with, at least
Right.
not today, and
Right.
it's definitely not going to come from me.
We're right. I mean, just scientifically thinking about it. I mean, if we it's interesting, that we would that they would be the safest to go back, but isn't it true that we expose kids to like germs and things like that so that they can build a stronger
Right,
immune system? We let them eat their lollipop off the ground that had some dirt on it, and you just pick a little
right,
bit
right, right,
off, blow it off, and you'll be fine.
right,
You'll be okay because you're building your immune system, you're
right.
building the antibodies necessary. But like, so with that argument, if we have kept them away, if we kept them unexposed, if we kept them safe, wouldn't they be the next most likely to be um hit the hardest?
But they're not in a bubble.
But they mm,
And the reason why I say they're not in a bubble, because think about it, like remember Bubble Boy,
right,
the
right,
movie. I'm not talking about
right,
the
right,
actual
right, right.
kid, but
Yeah, yeah.
remember like that fear that I can't get anything right. It's like he was in an extreme clean environment. So if he was to catch something, that is completely different.
Right.
But our kids are already exposed to a lot of different things, whereas they may, and I don't know for sure. I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I haven't heard if this has happened at any schools or whatever. But let's say that they have been exposed to a mild case about it, and we just don't know. But with that small mild case of exposure from everybody or from the kids or whatever that they can get or that they've survived through has started to build that immunity. Like I don't know, I'm just throwing out stuff here, like speaking about them being exposed to germs stuff like that all the time. Like
Right.
maybe that is something that's happened and we just don't know or we're learning about it.
Well,
And
yeah, because we
then
also didn't know if it was here before we actually
right,
had the pandemic here.
right, so then they very well could be immune to getting it and or have gotten it, and their bodies are developing ways of fighting it already, but we don't know if we don't try, and nobody wants their kid to be the guinea pig.
Well,
And
shit,
nobody wants
no.
them to be
Some kids, some parents don't give a fuck. Like as
that's
you could
true.
see, like there are people who elected to just send their kids back, and it's like if you get it, you get it. You gotta live your life, right? You'll be fine.
I'm for protect the kids, but also I don't want the kids to be super afraid
I don't
and
want them to be
feel
afraid,
very. I want
but
them to be safe,
yeah,
and this is that gray area,
right,
like it's not a black and white thing. It's now this is that gray area. It's like a
right.
I don't know, you know. there's only so much we can.
There's a lot of information that is necessary in order to make informed decisions.
Right.
You have to sift through it, keep what is useful, discard what isn't, but also understand that some things are immovable.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Something.
But again, as long as we all do our part, we can persevere and get through anything. And again, as long as we all do our part, not some, we all got to do our part. What is that part? Only you know.
Gotta stop just thinking about the me.
Yep.
And also integrate the we.
Exactly. And that's how our community will get better. Because we can't have community without unity. And you can't have unity when it's only about me and you forget about the we. Well, I just want to say thank you to our Patreon and everybody that's been supporting us through the podcast. Please jump on in and spread the word. If you have agreeing views, let us know. If you have opposing views, let us know. If you don't really have a view, let us know. I would like to get to know you guys and talk to you guys again. And granted, yes, the world is slowly opening up in its own way, shape, and form, but that doesn't mean we have to stop communication. So please get at us, holla at us. Okay, you can follow us on all of our social media, and you can also find us on our Discord. Jump in, converse with us, talk to us on YouTube, talk to us through the Patreon. But either way, communicate with us, holla at us, man. I'd love to get to know you guys, meet you guys, and yeah.
And as per the Discord question, I mean, just share your thoughts and feelings about this. Do you feel it's too soon? Do you feel like it's not soon enough? Like it's right on time? Like what are your thoughts and feelings surrounding this idea that we're now deciding to open up the world a bit more? Yeah, just hop on in there. And Patreon, thank you so much for bearing with us as we learn our new style of interaction through there, and we also really appreciate your support. Everyone who has chimed in, whether personally or officially, we really appreciate your support. We really appreciate your grace. Yeah. Like said, if you want to continue this conversation outside of here, hit us up on Twitter or Instagram and have a drink cast. Make sure you use the hashtag HADcast. That way we can see whatever it is you post. And if you decide you want to answer the Discord question, this topic on there, make sure you use the hashtag HADcast. That way we can see wherever it is. All right. It's about that time.
Let's do it.
All right, kings, queens, and royals in between. I want to thank y'all again for joining us on another successful episode of the Have a Drink podcast, where we invite y'all back to sit, think, and have a drink. That's been us. Peace.
Peace.